Okay, we can start the session. Hello, and a very warm welcome to all the students present here and to my colleagues from the SPC. I'm Sundaresh Karthik Ganesan from the Student Placement Council, and I will be presenting this session to you this fine day. First of all, I appreciate you all for attending this session on a Sunday with a week left for quiz 2, and I wish you the best of luck for your exams. The session will start with the introduction and will proceed with the speaker throwing light on the topic of the session, and then we will move on to the Q&A. BDM Capstone project is a very important milestone to be completed for a student of our program. And for those who are yet to start, the project stands as a huge wall of mystery and uncertainty and opportunities behind it because it is without a doubt the most celebrated part of the diploma level or even the entire program. And here today, to help us cross this wall, we have with us a peer and senior from this program and one who has proved his excellence in this project. Jaidev sir is the Director of Technology at Gramener and has been in the field of data science for over a decade now. He is the second runner-up of the BDM Capstone Project Top Performer Awards in Paradox 2024, where he was invited to present his elaborate work, which was indeed a proud moment for the program itself. We welcome you, sir, and we are very much looking forward to the session.
Thank you. Okay, should we begin then?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. So, how do you want to do this? Okay. First of all, I think I should probably mention that I'm still technically under an NDA. So I cannot show you the detailed presentation. I can show you my poster though, the poster that we made for the event at Paradox.
Yes.
But I also would like to, keep things very interactive. So feel free to unmute. I guess people can they unmute themselves?
Yes, so they can unmute themselves and they can turn on their video as well.
Perfect. And so, yeah, feel free to raise your hand or unmute, or I would encourage you to unmute and speak because I'm not likely to be looking at the chat box very often. So if you just
Yes.
unmute yourself and speak, feel free to interrupt me at absolutely any time. Okay.
Yes.
How many of you? I see that there are 62 of us right now. Please raise your hand if you haven't started your BDM project. I'm just waiting for the numbers to stop increasing. Somebody's clapping. Okay. Okay, so yeah, great. Roughly a little less than half of us have not even started the project. Fair enough. I assume that the problem that you had while and I'm assuming that most of the others have finished this project or currently they're doing it. And one of the biggest difficulties in this project is data, getting data, right? So we will discuss that.
Yes.
Feel free to lower your hands. I would just wanted to get an idea of roughly how many people have been through that BDM process and how many are still yet to go. So more than half of you have already been through it. So that's pretty good. The other aspect of the BDM project is that it takes a little bit of effort in order to decide where in your diploma journey it should occur. So typically, multiple things could happen. One of the things that we thought when I'm from the first batch of diploma. So the very first batch that we had the option of not doing the project. And instead of that, we had to appear for a separate exam. It was like a different exam. And if we did that, we got like 1 grade less, but we passed. And the thing is that a lot of people did take that option. And today they still have a pretty good GPA, 9 plus. So this, losing those 2 credits didn't make a difference. But then what happened is that this project was made mandatory, and then there were some other things that came in. Like if you were to take data from Ashwin, then you will have to sort of compensate for that in some other way, right? I think some such
Yes.
thing. Yeah. What is the situation right now? How does it work right now? Because it's been 2 years since I've done my project.
Yes,
So
so
a lot
right now the situation is in case the students are not able to get the data from the company, they can get the data from any public data set available, but the grade that the maximum they can get will be D or E.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's a big difference. So that
Yeah.
can make a dent in your CGPA. And again, in general, I think this is a project that absolutely should be done. One of the things that the sooner people realize this, the better, is that data science or analytics or AI, whatever you want to call it, it is not simply about programming or otherwise. Of course, that there are a lot of people who believe that programming is secondary to analytics and data science, and then talking to people is secondary to even that. There is a lot of work that you actually have to do in the field, which directly impacts sales. It directly impacts the business, and that is the whole point of doing this project. I agree that getting data and sourcing data is very difficult. And what I'll do is, after we've gone through the poster, um, we'll set aside some time for this, and we'll talk exclusively about techniques of scoring data, for example. Right? Okay, let's see. There are some messages in the chat. I have BDM course this term, planning to take next term. Great. Planning to take one project next term with 4 courses. Should I take the BDM project next term? I have only 2 projects to complete my diploma in DS. So in that case, there is no option. The way that the BDM project should ideally be placed is that unless you already have some experience, if you're learning all of these things, typically the kind of stuff that we go through in diploma, you just started doing programming and analytics and data science. There is an optimal point at which you should do the BS project. Do not do it, for example, before you have done MLP, right? Of course, do not do it before you have done BDM theory. That's kind of a given. But do not do it before you have done business analytics as well. Because if you go through these courses before you do your diploma, you already have a lot of tools which you have learned, which you can use in this project and therefore deliver better value, right? So what you should probably the ideal course, let's say that you're a foundation student who's just entering diploma and describing the entirely ideal scenario, you start looking for data on day one, right? You start looking for your options, you start thinking about what problems you want to solve. Then take a look at what are the right courses you need to do in order to deliver this project properly. You finish those courses and then you take this project up, right? So that's um, can we ask questions after raising? No, no, no. Feel free to just unmute yourself and ask. Like I said, don't hesitate to interrupt me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
So the problem with me is like I completed my BDM, BA, everything like last year, but
Yeah.
I tried 2 times. I got rejected for the project in first step or in the second step. Then again, I couldn't find the time to restart it again.
Hmm.
So, but this is my last time that I can take it up and complete my diploma in DS.
Hmm.
So, like, this is do or die now for me. So, I will take up this in next time, and I have to complete it. So, can you just guide me in that?
Sure, sure. Excuse me, why did it get rejected, if you don't mind me
It
asking?
was like uh, last year, the proposal was rejected, and the next time, the second stage, it was rejected. I can share you the details, but it
Fair enough.
might take
So
longer.
I
Yeah.
think the right thing to do it this time would be to grab hold of everybody who, like you could talk to Avijit and the other SPC members, grab hold of anybody and go as far back as possible. Anybody who's done a good BDM project, just establish a channel of communication with them. Whatever you do, you run it through them. Ask for their feedback. If they can see, some spots which can be fixed, and if they can be
Yes,
improved into their feedback,
I'll
because
do
they've
that.
gone through this process, and if there is something for which you're going to get straight away rejected, they'll probably be able to spot it faster. You yourself also
Um,
have some experience, obviously. Right.
yeah, sure, sir.
All right. So let me share my screen. Oops. Wonderful. I'm just going to have to allow Zoom to
So, can I speak one more last time?
just give me one
Please,
second.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
All right. Um, okay. Sorry, please go on, Kushi.
Yeah. So initially, what I had the problem when I was in my hometown, that the shopkeepers was really not ready, not even ready. Like I convinced them many times, but they weren't ready to give me full access to the data,
Right.
and that where I failed to communicate better, and that then I just left it and went with my theory courses, and now I'm left with only this project to complete my diploma.
Yeah, well, convincing people
That's the
is
only problem.
uh,
Yeah.
that's a perennial problem, I would say. One of the strategies that, and of course, by the way, let me give you a big disclaimer. I have I have the advantage and the privilege of, having been in this industry for a while. So I, I probably didn't have to go through the struggles that you people are going through. I have some credibility because of, the work that I've done. And that is why whoever I asked, they did not deny me data. So I do have that privilege. So whatever I say comes from that position of privilege. So whatever I'm saying is take it with a pinch of salt. Given that the disclaimer is out of the way, I think a sustainable and a healthy way to actually gather data from, see, data is sensitive, right? People don't, if somebody is giving data away, you should probably be very suspicious of that person. And one way to sort of establish a good, credible channel of communication is organically. If there are people who are in the industry, if there are people in your friend and family circle who I mean, again, it doesn't have to be data in the conventional sense of data. As we've seen, there are things like ledgers can be data, right? Your smartphone carries a lot of data. So if there is a sabzi wala who's doing rounds or something, just ask them if they have a smartphone. That smartphone might contain the data of how many rounds they're doing through the colony. I know I'm talking about these really weird scenarios, but what I'm trying to do is reveal to you that data can be found anywhere. And then once you identify that data can be found in multiple such places, the next question is how do you establish your credibility? And that doesn't happen instantly. So that is also something that you need to keep in mind. Build a working relationship with people, and over time they'll start trusting you. When the time is right, ask them for data. Of course, I'm not saying that your relationship with people should always have this ulterior motive of grabbing some sort of influence from them, which also means that you can always reach out to your professors, you can reach out to people you work with, you can reach out to friends and family. They could be sources of data. Right? I hope that, let me see. Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. Is there any other question, or should we continue?
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
Yeah, what basically I felt from my part, the main problem I faced was I couldn't convince them. Like,
Hmm.
I couldn't convince them that no, it is not for any business purpose. It is for my project. I'll not reveal anything, and I
Hmm.
did everything. But I think that I should be like more good in communication, and that how can I
Correct. And
improve in that?
see, when you're, it's very clear, right? Like when you're expecting somebody to part with one of their possessions,
Yeah,
what do you offer in return?
yes, exactly, exactly.
Hmm. That is something that comes like, so I guess, give me data is not really a very good thing. So that is something that, again, and this is a habit. This needs to come with uh, practice. And what worked for me especially is starting with a very honest and frank conversation. Like, what are your biggest business problems? Forget about data.
Okay, okay, right. Hmm.
How I got this data is that I had friends and people I knew who were trying to solve this problem. Every time we would meet for completely unrelated reasons, they would always, have something to say about how customer support was a big problem for them. And I'd been listening to this complaint for a very long time. And I said that, okay, well, let's make something out of this. And of course, it's not like I didn't have anything to say before I did my BDM project. I always said, okay, at work, we had done this customer support product for such and such company. We use such and such techniques there. Why don't you try and use that? Right. Uh, One of the metrics of measuring customer support is customer support health generally is so and so. This is what call centers do. This is what uh, ticket responders do, and so on. So what have you thought about that? And that's how that conversation grew. And when it turned out that I needed to do a project on this, at that time already a lot of conversation had taken place. Right? So that's what I mean by developing an organic relationship. It should not come as a shock to them. It's like, you haven't spoken to me in a year and you're suddenly calling one day and asking for data. That becomes very jarring. right? So try to build that. And again, the flip side of that is that, people who are actually in your daily circle, try and find their data. And trust me, everybody has data. If you actually want to think about it, just go to takeout.google.com and try to download everything that you are generating data, right? And of course, if you happen to be somebody who's been running a business, that's sort of your business data, right? Anyway, so there we are. Okay, so like I said, the project was about optimizing customer support for an edtech firm, and this edtech firm, it runs a program which is very much like ours. You must have seen these. I won't tell you exactly the specifics, but you must have seen these ads all across social media, executive MBA and executive diplomas and all of those top tier institutes which are coupled with top tier edtech firms, right? So they get together and they offer these programs. And there are a lot of similarities between this program and ours. So there is support that starts off by uh, through email, and then there are things like there is a qualifier exam, then there are quizzes, and then you get a diploma or a certificate. You don't get degrees yet, of course, like us, but you do get certificates, and these certificates are taken pretty seriously. They're very expensive also, right? Much more expensive than our BS degree program, for example, because they are targeted specifically towards working professionals and things like that. And every time, like the people who are running these programs, they are academics and they are people from that tech space and so on, and some of them I knew. And every time we would speak to them, they would always say, oh my god, we are so tired because lots of students have questions, and we don't know how to handle this. And not like we don't know how to handle this, but it was like, we might have bitten off more than we could chew. There's a lot of traffic and blah blah blah. And okay, then a couple of months later, we meet again over dinner or something, and they again have the same complaint. This goes on and on and on, and then finally I said, okay, what kind of data do you have? Right. Now it turned out that just like us, they also were doing their entire support through email. It's later that they branched out. After, in fact, because of my project, they started branching out into different kinds of support redressal mechanisms. So I said, okay, if we agree to do this project, what kind of data can you give me? How do support requests come in? I say LinkedIn and emails and WhatsApp and telephones and everything. So I said, like, clearly there are 5 different sources of data over here, of which only one is probably something that can be grabbed electronically, right? WhatsApp, there's no way I can get WhatsApp data, right? Because it's supposed to be private by definition. Nobody is going to sit down and transcribe audio phone calls, right? So it turned out that the only thing that was available was inbox. So which is where again Google Takeout come in. 2 years worth of data about one huge 80 GB file, which was essentially just their support inbox. So in fact, if you could go to I don't know, maybe JK and ask him to go to take google.takeout, and if you have support at onlinedegree.iitm.ac.in ka account, and you take the dump of that, that'll be like 5 times this size, of course, because this is a much bigger program. But that is kind of what you'd get, right? And the mbox format is it's a file format that is has been around for a very long time. So those of you who have done mad 1 mad 2, they might be knowing about the smtp protocol, right? So the smtp protocol is what um, supports the mbox format. It's essentially an xml file, right? And there are multiple fields in that file, like the recipient, the sender, the subject, the body, if there are any attachments, blah blah blah, all of that. And then there are certain things which the SMTP protocol adds called email headers, right? So email headers could contain different kinds of information, and like your avatar and all of those things, and your signature and lots of different things. Like, and if there are specific clients, like if I use Outlook versus I use Gmail, right? Or I could be using Hotmail, whatever your email client is. Depending on that, these headers change. So, for example, if it's Google has this nice feature that if multiple emails are coming in the same thread, the SMTP protocol is still going to treat them as different files, but there'll be a thread ID which Google injects. So you can see, how long or how short threads have been. So this was a big problem. And the thing is that it was one big 80 MB file, 80 gigabyte file, which was shared through me via, it was Google Takeout. So Google gives you a download link. It doesn't split the files. And every time I tried to download it, network timeout, it goes to 60 GB network timeout again, and something or the other kept happening. It didn't happen. So, but the one good thing that was there is that since it was already mounted in somebody's drive, they could straight away mount it to my drive. And Google Colab notebooks are then able to connect to your drive. So you don't actually have to download the file. I of course needed to download the file because there's no way I'm going to do all my analysis straight up on Google Colab. So, but one thing that we quickly did was um, this file was already mounted, split it into smaller files, and download one by one, maybe 8 files of 10 gigabytes each. It was much easier to do, right? But and then the parsing process began, and then we started thinking about how to break this data down. Sorry, like I said, don't rely on hand raises. Unmute yourself and talk, please. Let's
Sir,
see.
I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yes, please.
So you said before BDM project, one need to ensure that they have completed at least MLP and business analytics.
Yeah.
But I have only completed BDM and this term only I have business analytics.
Hmm.
So how am I supposed to go on with this project?
Is
Can you
business
guide me?
analytics the only course that is left?
No, no, this is my second term only.
Okay, okay.
And
So wait. I would say that take your time. You do these courses because the reason I'm saying this is that these courses contain the recipes that you would probably need. If you do
okay.
these courses before you do your BDM project, you'll already have a set of tools in your head that when data comes, I'll be ready to attack it.
Mm.
And MLP, I say, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to do machine learning, but you'll have had exposure to things like pandas, right? Which is critical in terms of dealing with structured data. Of course, I mean, you first of all have to be lucky enough to get structured data. But no matter what, you can always, do something or the other to make it convertible into structured data, right? So you can do that. And which is why I was saying, okay, let's see. Which are the programming courses that I would recommend you should do before BDM? DBMS, certainly, because having the relational algebra or the relational calculus that we use, essentially what tables, rows, and columns mean, that is something that is critical. Business analytics and BDM, obviously, you have to know a little bit of tools for data science will certainly help because that course exposes you to a lot of different tools, and you never know what might end up, becoming useful at a certain point in your BDM project. And the thing is that if you do all of these things, then it makes it'll make Ashwin also very happy because then he'll see that you are sort of taking a holistic view of things, right? Yeah. All right.
So should I register for this course? Sorry, this project?
I would recommend.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, I mean,
Yeah.
before formally registering for it or something, you start spreading your tentacles. You start looking into your network. You start your data gathering process, all of that. You do register when you're ready.
Okay, thank
In
you.
fact, if the people who are not desperate right now, who are who still have a lot of time before they finish this project, start looking right now. Register when you have the data in your hand already, right? Don't try not to do that thing where I'll register, then I'll go start looking. No, that may not happen because by the time you submit your first proposal itself, you need to have done a lot of work already. If you're lucky, I mean, if you do it well, you only need to do that much, and then you can sort of traverse the rest of the course such that it becomes a lot smoother. But it's sort of like a Pareto distribution. The first 80% is going to be the most difficult, sort of. The rest after that, it sort of smoothens out. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
Sir,
Yes, yes, yes.
sir, actually, I have my BDM project in the next term.
Hmm.
So, are you like suggesting me to start working on it right now? Right now.
Please, yes. If you have time, go ahead.
Okay.
Why not? Because if you have time and because see, this is not going to be easy. So start as soon as possible. Don't there's no need to panic, of course, but keep it at the back of your mind. See what you can get started with right now. The process of acquiring data, of processing data, getting it into a format where it is consumable, that may take time, and getting the kind of data that actually reflects a good consulting problem. All of those things will take time. So The sooner you start, the better.
Sir, I have a query regarding the stuff on the business side. Like, okay, if we are trying to improve optimize the customer support. So are we have also how we have done the auto reply part, because there could be a multiple messages in a single thread.
Yeah.
So how we identified uh, like which thread we need to auto reply to the
Very
customer.
good point. Very good point. You see, this is called knowledge-based discovery. And I think I've written something about that. Yeah. The hypothesis is essentially that similar questions have similar answers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If two questions are very close to each other from a text sense or content sense, semantic sense, right? Then their answers also should be very close to each other, right? For example, if something changes in this might have happened with you, by the way. Something changes in terms of what requirements we have before we allow somebody to get placed, right? Maybe a CGPA requirement. Of course, I'm not sure whether we actually impose any CGPA requirements or anything, but we have these activity points, right? Placement activity points and all of that. Something changes there. Suddenly, there'll be a flood of emails, right? Most of whom will be asking more or less the same question, right? And this is where, your MLP skills come in. We can do clustering on emails, right? And nowadays, by the way, it's a lot easier. So if you have access to LLMs or something, which by the way are not that expensive, if you're not straight up chatting with them, there are a lot of underlying technologies within LLMs, which are actually much cheaper. So for example, getting the embeddings for tokens or text or documents from GPT is really cheap. In fact, it costs peanuts, in fact. So what I can do is, put in an email or a bunch of emails and say cluster them. And if the clusters are good enough, then I know that, okay, these 25 people are asking about what to do in, whether they need a hall ticket or not. These 25 people are asking about what to do because they need to increase their placement points. These 25 people can't get BDM data, something like that, right? And that is something that can be automated. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
And this happens, and this is what we also figured out, that by giving out replies to email, by putting up posts on the discussion forum, like we have discourse, they have something else, right? By looking out the kind of content that we put out for people to consume, all of this is our knowledge base, right? And slowly, as more and more of the same questions are answered, people stop asking those questions. For example, there was a time, I don't know if some of you are old enough or senior enough in this program, but I think for all OPPs, SCT is mandatory, correct? Right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
There was a
Yes,
time
sir,
when
it is
SCT was
mandatory.
not mandatory.
Yeah,
Only people who were a bit confused about that, they said, okay, please come, take the SCT, ensure that everything is fine, and then you can go, right?
yeah,
Then suddenly at one point, we decided that, okay, this is becoming too confusing. So let's make it mandatory. Everybody has to do it. It takes 5 minutes. You just come and go, right? So then
exactly.
what happened is that a bunch of emails that were about, okay, do I have to do SCT? Do I have to do SCT? All of those emails stopped, right? Then other kinds of emails will come in. So what happens is that, people are dynamic. When you address one question, five other questions will, and that's natural, right? That's how, because information changes all with time, your core structure changes with time. All of these things are bound to happen. So that is why what you need to do is that the kind of things that you have been saying to people over and over again, that this is the way it works, this is what you need to do in order to do the BDM project, this is what you need to do in order to take an SCT and so on. These become the replies that you give to these emails. They become your knowledge corpus. They become your knowledge base. And from that, you can pull out Wikipedia pages, you can pull out FAQ pages, you can create a chatbot out of that, right? What that does is that it leaves you free to focus on the things that are actually genuinely problematic. And this, by the way, is a classic big data problem. The support team in this particular case was so flooded with so many irrelevant or less than important support requests that legitimately troublesome things, the kind of things that actually required somebody's intervention, were getting abstracted out. They were getting completely swallowed by this. So which is why we also established these three, priority levels. Like the lowest one is that, you don't respond at all. And trust me, there will be people who will constantly send these messages which do not even warrant a response. And I'm not being cruel here. It's just a fact of life. If I'm receiving 5,000 emails per day, if you're going to ask me whether the hall ticket printout should be color or black and white, I'm not going to respond to that. This is the kind of stuff you can ask anyone. You ask your friends.
Exactly.
Have you Googled it? Have you gone to Discourse and figured it out? Have you looked at the student handbook? Right? So these are the category of messages that a good knowledge base will destroy. So how do you know whether your knowledge base is good? When these sort of things stop happening. Of course, they will never stop. It's a long tail because people do not read, unfortunately. And again, you probably, all of you know what I'm talking about. You probably yourself face these issues, and you have your course instructors have faced these issues, and they'll slightly get irritated and say, please, I've answered this on this course, go read it and all of that. But yeah, it's difficult. But anyway, and this is not a student problem. This happens all the time in every single industry. So, people who do IT support are typically very irritated at this. There's a reason I wrote the wiki document so that you can read it before coming and talking to me. If you have any questions, please go through the knowledge base first. What is the knowledge base that is available to you? In this case, again, it's the student handbook, the discourse, and all of the equivalents, right? So a good knowledge base, if you have done it well by using multiple NLP techniques like topic mining, document clustering, and so on and so forth, figuring out the sentiment of standard NLP stuff. All of those things, they'll help you create a good knowledge base, right? And then the next priority level is responses, which you can reply to a little later also. Like nobody's getting hurt if you don't reply to them. But they need to be replied to, but they're slightly less urgent. Final category is that you have to respond, otherwise people will get hurt. Like, they will actually lose grades. Like, for example, there is a contentious question which is coming right before the deadline, and people say, "Oh my God, okay, you have asked a question which is out of syllabus." This is important. This is something that needs to be addressed quickly. Or you end up in a quiz and you realize that there were 3 questions that are from the further weeks. Right. So then they'll give you a answer transcript and so on. And then you go through it and you say that, okay, my marks don't add up. So that's an urgent kind of a thing to deal with. Right. So the idea is that this process needs to be automated. That is what actually saves time for people. And if you think about it, this can be done by simply, we are nowadays, the technology that is there to, by the way, when I did this project, that was just pre GPT launch. Now, if I were to do this project, I would take a completely different look at it. Nowadays, the technology which sort of identifies the intent of a piece of text is very easy to find. It's, forget about GPT, but that's maybe, let's say, even if you say that I'm not going to spend a single cent, do everything open source, that's also completely there, right? So document classification is a very easy task nowadays. You can do a lot of very interesting things with this. The other thing that we notice is the
So
time
like,
series. Yeah, go on.
okay. So like just you said, na, ki if I would have done this project now, it would have been different.
Yeah.
So that is the thing. Once you start the project, you have to complete it like in 4 or 5 months. Otherwise, the project after 1 year, it would mean something
Yes,
else to the
yes, absolutely.
business. It's
It
even not a
is,
problem now.
yeah. It's very critical that you define your problem statement, and you have to have a very
Exactly.
clear idea of when it is finished.
Exactly.
It's very tempting to not finish things like this. But then the thing is that you can keep on going and going and going. This, have you heard of an MVP?
I think
Minimum
so.
viable product.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
Have a very, very clear
Exactly.
idea. And
Exactly.
if two parties don't agree on what an MVP is, that will completely drain you. And we see these sort of things happen at work all the time, where the client and us have some sort of a disagreement on what an MVP is. And they say, no, you add this feature also, you add this feature also, you do this analysis. When does it end? If this is MVP, then what is the real
Yeah.
product, right? If you want everything in the MVP, then you need to be paying us at that level also, right? I need to be very, very clear idea of when to stop. And that's difficult. I completely acknowledge that that is very difficult, because when you see data and when you realize that such a wealth of things is possible with it, it's extremely tempting to keep going and going and going. That is a good
So
problem to have. It's the problem of plenty.
yeah. So I can really relate to that because I started my project last year, and
Hmm.
now when I see it, that's not even a problem for that company. So I have to
Sorry,
find
that's sort of
another
what?
problem. That's not even a
That's what?
problem for that company
Yeah, yeah.
anymore.
So again, that's the point, right? Like you have to sort of move fast and come back in a time that actually makes sense to people. I certainly see this problem. If I were to go back to this particular edtech firm, this is not a problem for them because they fixed it. So all of
Exactly.
my I'm happy in a sense that the code that I wrote for them, the dashboard that I made, which sort of lets them do this analysis repeatable across multiple terms, is redundant now, which is good. I'm not at all sad that they had to throw it away, because they have better problems to deal with now. This one big thing is gone. So yeah, you have to know when to stop. And the corollary of that is pick easy problems first. And low hanging fruits is what we call them. What are the simplest things that could actually create the largest impact? And it is simple things that cause the largest. You don't want to win a Nobel Prize here. Most often you'd be very, very surprised how often simply counting things computationally gives you a big boost. So in fact, when we do exploratory data analysis, we divide everything we get out of it into something which we call the patterns of insights. And there are these very, very fixed patterns. One is surprising extremes. You just take a column and sort it. One of the things that one example of that is, do you know which cricket team is the most difficult to score runs against? In terms of, in one-day internationals, which cricket team is the most difficult to score runs against? Now, how would you answer this question? You scrape data from
Yeah.
somewhere, cricket for blah, blah, blah. You take a column, like there is country, average runs scored against, sort.
Yes.
What do you think appears at the top if you sort them ascending? Which country do you think appears at the top when you sort it in an ascending manner?
Australia maybe?
Australia.
It's Afghanistan.
Or the company that has
Oh,
played
is
very
it?
few matches when compared to the other
It is
countries.
Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the most difficult country to score runs against.
Oh, that is
So
shocking.
then it
People
includes
score
all
an
the,
average of 20 runs against Afghanistan. Why do you think that is?
Because they have played less matches, maybe.
Not necessarily, because we're talking about averages, right? The
then
thing is,
there
you
are
don't
many,
need to run more than 20 runs against Afghanistan. By the time you score 20 runs against Afghanistan,
Okay.
you've already won.
we will be.
So you see that when you sort things, it's literally just an Excel sort. That's it. The other thing, the other pattern of insight is something that we call surprising outliers. It's like, if you sort these things, if you look at the first, second, and third ranks, right? The first, obviously, in any set of numbers, there'll be a maximum and a minimum. But if you look at the runner-ups, if they are far away from the top, then that's a surprising outlier. It's not just that, let me see, what's a good example? I can't really think of one. But if we were to, sort individuals by their net worth, right? Not only is, who's the richest individual? Is it Warren Buffett right now? Or is it Elon Musk, or who is it? Yeah, it doesn't matter. But, if you were to sort of sort things by that, and typically, it's not, when you sort things and plot them, it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be it's going to be a Pareto curve, right? So the topper is not just the topper because they score the maximum marks, they are an outlier because they are so much more ahead of the second highest score that it looks like an outlier. So that's another pattern of insight. The third pattern of insight that I remember is surprising distributions. You expect a sort of distribution data to follow some distribution. Simplest example of that is, tossing a biased coin. you should expect it to be 50-50. But if it's not, it surprises you. And there are two more which I'm forgetting, but I'll share them with you later. You'll realize that when you do EDA, most things that surprise you, they fall into one of these 5 patterns of insights. And simply applying them is very useful. You're not doing anything fancy at all. All of this MLP and computer vision, all of that comes later, right? Especially, I mean, I'm talking only from the perspective of data consulting, right? I'm not talking in terms of building ML products and all, which is a different conversation. It's a different game entirely, right? So there we are. So for example, if one of the ways, one of the other recipe for discovering insights is visualization. So I had a time series like this. So for example, let me see if I can locate that. Daily incoming messages. Do you see this? So from July of 2020 to October of 2022, this is the count of incoming messages to the support inbox. What do you see here? Nothing really, right? Like there's one spike, but that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
It tells me that 500 is sort of the average if you look at it. That's it. I'm dealing with 500 emails per day. I didn't need a visualization to figure that out. Right. So this visualization doesn't really tell me something. But what could I do with this time series? I could look at day of week. I could look at the month information a little more. Like, can I see here in this format? I can't see any particular month being more active than others. I can't see a particular year being more active than others. But when the same data, exactly the same data is presented in this form, you see patterns. So the top calendar heat map is the inbox of what you're receiving, and the bottom is the outbox of what you're sending. So this, for example, is for 2020, this is for 2021, and this is for 2022. One of the hypotheses that we had is that, Mondays, Saturdays, and Sundays will be very difficult because that's when the corresponding homework assignment deadlines are. In our case, it will be Sundays and Wednesdays, right? And that is when most support queries will come in. So we thought that we'll see a green line across all Wednesdays, across all Sundays and so, but you clearly see that that is not happening. What is happening is that we are seeing vertical lines, not horizontal ones. So you see that this thing is darker, this whole week is darker, this week is dark, this week is dark. Again, same pattern repeats. There is a busy week. Here is a massively busy week. Here's another busy week, right? What this means is we thought that we have busy days, but that is not true. What we have is busy weeks. There are specific weeks that are busy. Days of the week are not busy. Mondays are not busy at all. In our case, if we did this analysis on our data, we'll realize that people really don't get that worked up on Sundays and Wednesdays because of the assignment deadlines. They get worked up during the quizzes. And that typically activity is contained in 1 week because it is within 1 week that hall tickets are given out, quiz happens, answer keys are released. Similar things are happening here. Exactly. So that's one way of sort of, going through you start with a hypothesis, you look at the data, and then you fix that hypothesis. So this is surprising distribution of data. This is one example of that, one pattern of insight, right? And those of you who have done data visualization design, you'll have studied something called the pop-out effect, right? When you see your data a certain way, certain things just pop out. Right? That's one way of dealing with things. Anyway, then of course, like there were the analysis was designed in 2 parts. If you were to simply take away the data or containing the email text,
So can I interrupt?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you just go the diagram again, the calendar diagram?
Yeah.
How did you even obtain this?
Because like I said, the mbox format contains the list of emails.
Okay.
And every email has a timestamp. When was it sent? When was it received? And I know who the sender is. I know who the recipient is. So I know whether it is in my inbox or whether it is in my outbox. So I know that
everything, yeah.
I have the Unix epoch timestamp. System commands, people should know what that is, right?
Right.
Therefore, I can extract the year, the month, and the day of the week also. Day of the week doesn't matter, obviously, because I know the date. Yeah, there it is. If I know that I'm sending it, it's in my outbox. If I know that I am the recipient, it's in my inbox.
Right.
And there is a, I mean, this is the plots you see are just matplotlib. Nothing too fancy about that.
Yeah, that is. This is very interesting.
Yeah. So
So in
visualization,
that case,
yeah,
I have a question.
please.
So given that I see all these awesome diagrams, so it is important. Is it important to have a good knowledge about data visualization before we even start with BDM?
Yes,
Because it comes in degree level and we do this in
absolutely.
diploma.
Absolutely. There is data visualization is one of those things where the learning curve is very interesting. When you learn Python or pandas and all of these things for the first time, when you start getting your feet wet with Seaborn, Matplotlib, and all of these things, that is the time typically when people make the worst data visualizations of their lives. It takes some time again to sort of, bring all of those things closer together. So there are many things that are there to learn. For example, I've seen people creating bar charts where every bar has a different color, which is a bad idea. But like the length of the bar
Yes.
matters, not the color. But now if the color is different, that becomes distracting, right?
Yes.
And the other thing that again, many people might have told you by this time, pie charts, it's just terrible, right? And to make it worse, people make 3D pie charts. So there, it is very easy to make bad data visualizations. The thing is that, and again, I do not consider myself an expert at all. Ask for help. Every time you create a chart or something, please show it to someone and don't prompt them. Ask them to see if does this make sense. Like for example, when I showed you this chart, I should not have to point out my insights. They should be visible to you. Now, this is a bad chart because there is no insight there. So what I should have done is not kept this chart at all. The one thing that stands out here is that something major happened in, I don't know, September of 2021. I don't know what that is. Maybe they got a new batch of students, or maybe they announced some sort of discount or whatever the case may be. But that's the only insight that comes out of this. Can I think of better ways of doing this? Absolutely. So I shouldn't have included this at all. But ठीक है, अभी वो है तो it's there. These are clearly, you can see that these are straight up word clouds. How often certain words appear in a piece of text. And you see the inbox peaks. If you look at this chart and you say that, okay, whatever is above 500 emails per day, I consider that as a peak, right? You clip off those messages. Take the messages from the days where there have been more than 500 per day. And you'll see that this is the word cloud of it, unable to access content. The one thing that makes people panic like anything is when they can't access things, which makes complete sense. It's not like it didn't know this, but this is a good thing in a sense, right? Because server availability, uptime, content access, making sure that your portals are running, making sure that the websites are up and working, making sure that YouTube is working, all of that. Technically, that is not the support team's problem. There is a separate team maintaining all of these things. So all of these things should straight away be forwarded to them. And if you do that, all of these peaks are lost. Your inbox is a lot more manageable. Again, in Medium, you might have realized that there is something that we study called overall equipment efficiency. Anybody remembers what that is? I don't. That's why I mean, it's not a quiz question or something, but I can.
So overall equipment effectiveness,
Huh.
where you measure how much time was available for production, then multiply with the good the PQ.
No, and formula, no, not the formula. What does it mean? I think
It means that okay, what is your plant overall effective efficiency? Means
correct.
you how much you have produced, at what quality rate, and PQ, and what is the third one? I forgot. So
Okay.
it tells
But I
you.
think what the idea is that it lets you separate concerns. If there is a pipeline of production,
Yes.
and its availability is one thing, its maintenance is one thing, its efficiency is a third thing, right? See, these
Yes.
are three different things. And if there is a failure, which of these three categories it falls into? The point of OEE is that it lets you separate these concerns so that, addressing them becomes easier. Similar here. Server uptimes and website availability is not support team's problem, right? So they should not be receiving emails. They should straight away be given out. And if the inbox are going to peak at, because of these kind of things, that's good news, because that means that you are essentially washing your hands off of this. And that's a good thing. Like in support all over the world, this is actually, this is called triaging, effective triaging, right? If you can hand over the right request to the right team, and if you can cut down on that time, that globally in support makes the biggest impact. You'll see that most of the times you're holding a phone call when somebody has put you on hold is because we are trying to direct your call to the right concerned team, right? If that can happen quickly and effectively, that is extremely efficient. Which is why people try to do it through IVRS. You want to talk about your billing, or do you then press 1? You want to talk about your latest credit card bill, press 2. So they are trying to try is at that stage itself. Before you enter the system, we want to try it. Similar things could happen here. If we know that when access is lost, people panic and they flood you with emails, then direct the emails to somebody else straight away, right? And that is doable because I can just look for certain things in the subject line and so on. Right? So this is one way to do that. And then, there are these technical terms that I've used in my report called positive weekly correlation and negative weekly correlation. We can come and look at that eventually. So yeah, like I said, the knowledge base mined from all of these things, it can be dynamic. People change, their responses to things change, you change in response to them. So the whole process, you can't do it for 3 months and stop. It has to be repeated and dynamic and keep, evolving your knowledge base as a living document, right? Just like we have our handbook. We keep on evolving it, keep on changing it. Discourse is another example of that. The way I used to speak on Discourse 3 years ago is very different from the way I speak on it now. Same is true for you, right? And when that happens, that becomes a more healthy way of dealing with customer support to begin with, but generally any and everything. So there we are. I think that's broadly what my project was about. And what ended up happening was they did introduce a ticketing system later. And that itself also reached its maturity, and now they have a much better redressal mechanism. So, I mean, the idea is that, the support team is no longer overworked and fatigued, which is good. That's QED. There we are. So I think we are almost done, but I'm happy to stick around for as long as is needed. And again,
Yes, if
happy to
anyone
take
has
any.
any questions, I think this is the time to ask sir that question.
I mean, I'm done from my end. Now, just completely up to you.
Yes.
So, my question is, suppose if I wanted to, I went to one small scale industry in Pune, and they are, the cookies and the small manufacturer who do farm to fork, from farm to selling. So this was their concept, and they are doing, the like maize, jowar, and all this one, and they make the cookies and they brand it and they sell it. So what happens, they have around, they sold around 70 equipments, the complete line.
60, 70 what?
60, 70 equipments. Means that you
Equipment.
have, you have one process unit where you put the raw material, you process it to a definite shape, then you pack it and you brand it and you sell it to supermarkets.
Retailers.
So they were good in manufacturing. And then now what happens, for continuous earning, they plummeted, means it's not growing. So they were talking that, okay, what will be the solution there, so that they engage with customers, so that they get some service, like maintenance, spare parts, and they want to engage how much they to engage in the terms that, okay, how much the guy, the farmer who has bought that machine of 5 lakhs, how much he has earned, what was his main problems. Can these data, when it comes back to the manufacturer, he will go through that and he will try to continuously improve his system.
Yes.
And when he will engage, so during lean times of his production cycle, he can engage that engineers with the customer, so that it is a first-hand information, and it's a continuous improvement, and the manufacturer earns something, as a ticket. When he gives some service, he put that, okay, you pay me 2,000 rupees per year, and these are the communication channels which will be open for you. If you have any problem, call my engineer, they will sort out. So that so when I went there, so now what has happened is, we thought that, okay, can we do, in a proper way, that digital as a service? Suppose if, because their equipment already have the remote access control, they can, on the web, they can see the performance of that equipment.
Are
There is
you
there is
doing this as your own project or what?
Yeah, I'm doing my own project. I went to them to take the
That's
data,
pretty
but
good. Like you clearly have a very sophisticated understanding of this sortly complex thing. The only thing I'd advise is cut it down a little bit, because there are a lot of things you're grappling with right now.
yeah,
So
that's why. So I'm not able to do what I have to do now. I have,
this is again the problem of plenty. On one hand, there is a problem of scarcity where you have no data. Now you have, well, I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily even talking about data, but the complexity of the problem.
yes,
Uh, there are people who struggle with what problem they should solve, and there are people who struggle with the fact that they have so many problems, they don't know which one to pick first. Please streamline it.
okay,
You will go mad otherwise, and in a good way, of course, but this project is not the time for that.
okay, okay.
Please,
Yes,
again, and the way to do that, the perfect, most effective way to do that is to conduct extensive user interviews. Have those of you who have done market research in the degree level might appreciate this a bit better. To actually go and embed yourself in that team, which is what I also did in my project. I went and sat in that inbox, and I was there, simply replying to people. So this is called shadowing, right? You go and whoever's the, expert in that particular domain, you shadow them. You become an apprentice for at least a few days, a few weeks, whatever time it needs for you
Yes,
to appreciate the problem from within, from getting a first person perspective of that problem. You can either do that, or you can do detailed focus group interviews. Grab the three most important people in that business and ask them, if you had, what are your top three problems to solve? And
okay.
focus only on them. Don't
Yeah,
branch. That you can do later. In fact, finish that, get an internship in that company, then do all of these things. But again, focus, and that's very important. Otherwise, you'll sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
get.
yes. That was my point. Thank
But
you.
great. I mean, the idea is that you have a very good holistic view. So now come down to something that is precise.
So means you were talking of the minimum viable product. So I will ask there that, okay, where I should start, means which is
No,
their
no, no, no. Wrong question.
okay,
They can't tell you where they should start, where you should start.
okay. So I have
Ask
to
them what their
analyze.
problems are.
Okay,
Then ask yourself, which of these problems do I have the data for?
okay,
That becomes the overlap. What
okay.
problems do they have? What
Mm,
can I fix? Where is the
mm,
overlap? That
mm,
becomes your
okay.
thing. And MVP, again, that's a separate
Yeah.
discussion. Right?
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Again, that's actually highlights a very good question. Don't ask people for, see, first of all, when you go around asking for data, you're already putting a lot of pressure on people. On top of that, you're saying, give me problems to solve.
No.
Like, no, boss,
Yeah.
you do it, please. Like,
Mm,
I don't have any problems to solve. You came to me, right?
yes.
Don't ask for problems. Build your own. And
Okay.
of course, people will not tell you their problems, because these are business problems. This is sensitive information. So the first thing you have, I mean, one of the earlier things that you need to develop is empathy.
Yeah.
And that happens by embedding yourself in that team, by shadowing, by being an apprentice, and again, by conducting detailed interviews.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
So I tried to engage from last year,
exactly?
visiting their site and
Organic conversations,
no, no, no. Yes.
honest conversations about what is troubling people.
Yes.
That will reveal problems.
Yes. So sometimes they will ask me that, okay, they are making one quotation for Saudi Arabia, they want to sell that. So what things they should look into the engineering side.
Correct, correct.
So small input I keep on giving them. And I wanted to have some relationship before I went into their,
Precisely.
business.
Precisely.
Otherwise,
If
they
you
will
go
not
and ask
share
for
anything.
data, you will have credibility. You will have some background. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Which I
just
agree is not, I mean, like I said, it's a function of, some privilege and some credibility that you already have. Most people may not have that when they're beginning out, but build it. That's a good exercise.
No, it takes a year. I searched them on LinkedIn, then went to their then I told him where I am working, how can I help. So it started like this, and then
It does take time, yes.
thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
I
so
think we are towards the end of the session. I think it is a
I
good time
guess,
to end the session.
yeah, anybody knows, well, let me just take a look at the chat. How to approach the PDM project, like what is the outline, what type of data to collect, I am in first. Okay, I guess, you could go to Discourse and look at all of these things. That's one way to do about it. What type of data to collect depends on the problem. The outline is given in many documents in many Discourse posts. That's something that you can find easily. Akashdeep is asking, I do have the same problem in understanding what problem they face in the business. I even consulted that, they just showed yeah, see, they don't know, right? From their perspective, they may not have a problem at all. It is your job to figure it out. Listen, if somebody is going to give you data and give you problem, what are you bringing to the table? The point is to the crux of being a good consultant sort of is to expose problems people did not know they had, or they have been focusing on the wrong problems, right? CA doesn't know, right? He just knows the balance sheets, which of course, I mean, CA's problem will be like, we don't have enough revenue or something like that. Who knows? That there are, you most likely, in fact, Avijit's project, they were not aware they had a problem. He had to find it out for them. All right. So thank you.
Yes,
I think
sir.
what I'll do is I'll leave my roll number 03751. I keep forgetting whether it is ds.study or study.ds.
ds.study.item.ac.in, sir.
Ah, yeah. Feel free to ping me on Google Chat or anything else anytime for any
Yes,
questions.
sir. So that brings us to the end of the session. And it was one of the most interactive and informative sessions, sir. And I'm very glad that many students have attended the session, regardless of the diploma assignment deadlines today, as it is Sunday. And sir, I particularly love the fact that along with guiding us for
No.
BDM and data
I have to do
analysis.
my homework today also. I have like, what? Oh, this time we have 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks ka ek
Yes,
saath.
sir, because of quiz next week.
Yeah.
Even I forgot that. Yes, sir. And I particularly love the fact that along with guiding us for BDM and data analysis, you gave us a whole set of points that was very relevant and relatable to the support team as well, and to SPC operations as well, in which I'm a part of. And you also explained how important data visualization is for this project and the thought process behind it as well. So it was personally very fun and very informative for me. And I hope that was the same for all the participants. Thank you, sir, very much for the wonderful interaction. It was
Bye.
very wonderful. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think,
Mahesh, sir, we can end the
sir, we can
live
end the
stream.
session and we can also end the live stream as well, sir. And also for all those participants, almost everyone has left. But if you have any questions that you want answered, you can mail it to the SPC and we will have the winners of the BDM project whom you want to answer. They will answer the questions as well, right? We have
Right.
our own secretary who is the winner of the award. So you will have a much better guidance as well.
Can we get
Feel
the
free to
email
mail
ID
us.
of the SVC?
It is being floated in the chat. IITM.TS Placement Council. It's in the chat. Abhijit has just shared it. You can just note it up. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. I think it's good enough for a session.
We can leave, Sandesh.
We can leave the session, right? All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Meet you in the next session.